I married to build a home, not to fund a frat house for lazy, grown men. In this house, I was being bled dry by mooching brothers-in-law and a manipulative mother-in-law. My patience had run out. It was time for this cash cow to kick back and reclaim her freedom. A torrential downpour hammered New York City that night, a fitting soundtrack to the bone-deep exhaustion that had settled into my every joint. The watch on my left wrist read 9 p.m. A newlywed, just 3 months into my marriage, I should have been enjoying this time with my husband, building our dreams in a small apartment of our own. But reality slapped me hard across the face the moment I opened the door to the faded, peeling paint of a townhouse in Queens. My in-laws' house. The sound of gunfire and explosions from a video game assaulted my ears before I could even kick off my soaked work flats. The noise came from the living room, where two adult brothers, who were supposed to be responsible members of a family, were sprawled on the floor in front of a massive TV, controllers in hand. They were Jake and Ricky, my husband's older and younger brothers. Both were in their 30s, but they acted like middle schoolers on a permanent summer break. The difference was, middle schoolers still had homework. These two had zero obligations. I took a deep breath, trying to shove down the anger bubbling up in my throat. My stomach growled loud enough to be heard over the game. I hadn't eaten since noon, buried under an avalanche of work at the office. All through the suffocating subway ride home, I had been fantasizing about the simple dinner I'd prepped this morning. A flank steak marinating in the fridge, ready to be seared, with a side of roasted potatoes and green beans. I remembered it clearly. I had left everything ready with a note for my mother-in-law, Sharon, asking if she could just pop the potatoes in the oven for dinner. With heavy steps, I headed for the kitchen. My hopes were simple: fill my stomach and then collapse into bed. But the scene on the dining table made my knees go weak. It was a wasteland. The table was covered in dirty plates, littered with gnawed steak bones. There were dried ketchup stains on the placemats, and half-empty glasses of iced tea, condensation pooling on the table. Not a single shred of meat was left. Even the potatoes were gone. All that remained was a greasy, empty roasting pan. I wanted to scream. I had bought that steak. I had bought it with the money from the overtime I'd worked last week. I had woken up at 5:30 a.m. to prep everything, so Sharon would only have to turn on the oven. And now, all I got were the scraps. I walked over to the sink and had to brace myself again. A mountain of dirty dishes was piled high. The greasy pan from the steak sat on the stove, filled with cold, congealed fat. The smell of old food was sickening. This wasn't just the aftermath of one person's meal. This was the carnage of a feast. It was obvious Jake and Ricky had devoured everything without a second thought for me, and certainly without any intention of cleaning up after themselves. "Jake? Ricky?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady, though it trembled with rage. They didn't even turn around, completely absorbed in their digital world. My voice went up an octave. Jake finally glanced over his shoulder, his eyes bloodshot from staring at the screen. "Oh, hey, Anna, you're home. Can you move a bit? You're blocking the screen." "Is the steak all gone?" I asked, straight to the point. "Oh yeah, that marinade was awesome. Your mom cooked it perfectly. We were starving after our workout, so we finished it all off." "You haven't eaten yet?" Ricky answered casually, without a hint of guilt. "I'm the one who bought that steak. I haven't eaten since noon, Ricky. And you couldn't even save me one piece? The potatoes are gone, too." "Dude, chill, Anna. It's just a steak. We can just order a pizza or something. You make good money. Why are you getting so bent out of shape over a few bucks with your own family?" Jake chimed in, his tone dismissive as he immediately turned back to his game. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. It wasn't about the steak. It was about the lack of consideration, the basic human decency that was completely absent. Just as I was about to retort, Sharon emerged from her bedroom. Her face was fresh, probably from one of the expensive face masks she'd recently taken a liking to since I moved in and took over all the household chores. "What is all this noise? Shouting this late at night? What will the neighbors think?" Sharon scolded. "Sharon, the dinner is all gone." "I haven't eaten," I said, hoping for a sliver of support from the woman who raised my husband. "I specifically asked if you could save some for me when I got home from work." "Oh, for heaven's sake, Anna. You're making all this fuss over a little food? Have some pity on your brothers-in-law. They're growing boys. They need their nutrition. They're men. They just eat more. You're a wife. A woman should know to sacrifice. If it's gone, just make something else. Go boil some ramen. Don't be so dramatic. Growing boys? Sharon, Jake is 32 and Ricky is 30. That's not a growth spurt. That's middle age, I snapped. My filter completely gone, and I'm tired, Sharon. I work all day to earn money that helps pay the utility bills for this house, to buy the very food that they just scarfed down. Don't I have the right to a hot meal in my own home? Sharon's face turned red. She hated being challenged. Oh, so now you're throwing money in our faces? You help pay one little bill, and suddenly you're queen of the castle. Don't forget, Anna, you're living under my roof. If you're not happy to help out your husband's family, then fine. But don't expect me to ever see you as a good daughter-in-law. Before I could answer, the front door opened. My husband, Ben, came in, looking just as exhausted as I felt. He worked as an admin clerk at a warehouse. His salary wasn't great, just enough to get by, which was why we were still living here. The plan was for just 1 year, to save up for a down payment on a small condo. But 3 months in, it already felt like 3 centuries. What's going on? Why is everyone so tense? Ben asked, looking between us. Sharon immediately put on a pained, theatrically sad expression. It's your wife, Ben. She comes home from work and starts screaming at everyone. Threw a fit just because Jake and Ricky ate the steak. She said, I'm a terrible mother. Said my boys are old and useless. It hurts my heart, Ben. I stared in disbelief. The speed at which she twisted the facts was breathtaking. I looked at Ben, praying he would see through it. Ben, that's not what happened. I'm exhausted, I'm hungry, and I came home to a mountain of dirty dishes and no food left. Not a single bite. I just asked why they couldn't save any for me. Ben let out a long sigh. He gave me a pleading look, the same one he always gave me whenever his mother started her drama. The look that meant, please, just let it go. I don't want to fight. Okay, Anna. It's okay. I'll go grab you a slice of pizza from down the street, all right? Just don't argue with Mom. It's not good for her blood pressure, Ben said softly. Too softly for a situation that felt so deeply unfair. Jake, Ricky, next time, save some for Anna, okay? Yeah, whatever, Ricky mumbled, not taking his eyes off the screen. Be patient, honey. That's just how it is, living with a big family. Once we have enough saved up, we'll move out. Just think of it as a test for our marriage, he whispered to me. I just stood there, my back to him. This wasn't a test. This was indentured servitude. Outside our room, I could still hear their laughter and the loud explosions from the TV, the volume seemingly turned up on purpose. That night, I realized that our temporary situation could easily become permanent if I didn't do something. This wasn't a home. It was a dormitory where I was both the primary donor and the unpaid maid. Payday was a day most workers looked forward to, myself included. But since moving into my in-laws' house, payday had become the most stressful day of the month. That morning, at the dining table, which was clean only because I'd scrubbed it at the crack of dawn, a Con Edison bill lay next to Jake's coffee. Jake, who had just woken up at 10 a.m., was sipping an instant coffee that, once again, came from the groceries I had bought. Anna, the utility bill came. Man, it's insane this month. You got this, right? Mom said her pension check was all used up on her arthritis medication, Jake said casually, sliding the envelope toward me as I was getting ready for work. I frowned. Jake, we talked about this last month. My share for utilities is $200. The rest is on you and Ricky. You guys are the ones home all day with the AC blasting, the TV on, and your computers running. Jake let out a condescending little laugh. Come on, Anna, we're not working right now. Where are we supposed to get the money? Besides, I heard you got a raise this month. A bonus, too. Don't be so cheap with family. Just pay it before they shut the power off. Mom can't handle the heat if the AC dies. I opened the envelope. The number made my eyes bulge. $650. 3 times what a normal household bill should be. It was insane. How could it not be? The air conditioning in Jake and Ricky's rooms ran 24/7. They never turned it off, not even when they went out to the corner store. Every light in the house was on, even during the day. The TV was always on, even when they were napping on the couch. Jake, this is not normal. I can't afford to pay this much by myself every month. My salary also has to cover Ben's car payments and the groceries for all of us. If this keeps up, I'll never be able to save anything, I protested. Suddenly, Sharon appeared from the kitchen holding a plate of donuts. What is it now, Anna? It's too early in the morning to be counting pennies. Blessings multiply when you share them with family. They don't shrink. Don't be a miser, or you'll live a lonely life. There it was again. A religious-sounding platitude used as a tool of manipulation. Every time I brought up money or fairness, some vague spiritual threat was deployed to shut me up. It's not about being a miser, Sharon. Ben and I are trying to save up to rent our own place or maybe buy a small condo. If my entire salary goes to paying for the electricity Jake uses to play video games, how are we ever supposed to become independent? Rent your own place? Sharon's voice shot up. So you want to separate me from my son? You want to leave me here all alone to take care of this big house with two boys who are still finding their way? How could you be so heartless? I'm an old woman. I'm not well. What if I have a heart attack and die when you're not here? What then? And the drama began. Sharon started clutching her chest, her breathing becoming theatrically ragged. Oh, my chest. It feels tight. Where's Ben? Ben, who was warming up the car outside, rushed back in. Mom? What's wrong? What happened? It's your wife. She wants to take you away from me, to leave me here to die alone. Sharon wailed, with a performance worthy of an Oscar. Ben shot me a sharp look. Anna, what did you say to Mom? I told you we'd talk about moving later, when the time is right. Look, you've triggered her anxiety. I could only stand there in silence, my fists clenched so tightly, my nails dug into my palms. I had lost again. That morning ended with me transferring the money to pay the utility bill, my heart filled with resentment. My savings for the month were now zero. The problems didn't stop at money. The complete lack of privacy was even more painful. That afternoon, after work, I planned to wash my face and use the new skincare set I just bought last week. It was a high-end brand, a self-reward after closing a huge project at work. It was expensive, almost a quarter of my paycheck, but I figured I deserved it for once. I went into the bathroom and looked for the face wash and toner on the shelf. The bottles were there, but they were empty, bone dry. The caps weren't even screwed on properly. My heart pounded. I checked my moisturizer. There was just a tiny bit left at the bottom, with a dirty fingerprint smudged inside. It was full yesterday. I walked out of the bathroom, my hand trembling as I held the empty bottle. I saw Ricky sitting on the front porch, his face suspiciously glowing and greasy. He smelled like my skincare. Ricky! I yelled. This time, I didn't care if the neighbors heard. Ricky turned around. What's up? Why are you always yelling? Did you use my face wash and moisturizer? Oh, the stuff in the blue bottles? Yeah, I tried some. My buddy said you gotta have a good routine if you want to get girls. It felt pretty good, kinda cooling, but there was barely anything in there. I used it once and it was all gone, he said, completely shameless. Once, and it was all gone? It was a 6-ounce bottle, Ricky. That's supposed to last for 2 months. What did you do, bathe in it? I shrieked, hysterical. Yeah, I washed my face, my neck, and my arms a little so they wouldn't be a different color. You're so cheap. You can just buy more. Guys gotta look good too, you know. I felt an overwhelming urge to throw the bottle at his head. That set cost $200, Ricky. $200. Hearing the number, Ricky looked slightly taken aback, but a second later, his indifferent mask was back on. Whatever, that's way too expensive. You got ripped off by some ad. A bar of soap works just fine. Stop being so dramatic. I ran back to my room, slammed the door, and burst into tears. It wasn't just about the money, but the profound feeling of being disrespected. My bedroom door didn't even have a functioning lock because Jake had broken it once when he drunkenly tried to get into what he thought was his room, and it was never fixed. My things weren't safe. My money wasn't safe. My sanity wasn't safe. That night, when Ben got home, I didn't yell anymore. I just sat on the edge of the bed, with swollen eyes and an empty stare. "Ben," I said softly. "What is it now, honey? Another problem with Ricky? I heard him complaining outside that you yelled at him about some soap." I looked deep into Ben's eyes. "Ben, I want us to move out next month. Period. Anna, we already talked about this. Mom's not ready. I don't care if Mom fakes a heart attack, an asthma attack, or any other illness." I cut him off, my voice cold as ice. "My things are being used without permission. My salary is gone, funding your brother's laziness. I work hard, Ben. I am so tired. I am not a cash machine. If you don't want to move, that's fine. I'll move out, by myself." Ben was silent, his face pale. He knew I didn't make idle threats. But as usual, his fear of his mother was greater than his love for his wife's well-being. "Don't say that, Anna. Just give me some more time, okay? I'll try to talk to Mom again when she's in a better mood." The classic response. A postponement with no end in sight. But that night, something inside me died. My respect for this family was gone, shattered into a million pieces, and when respect is gone, all that's left is cold, hard logic. If they were going to treat me like an ATM, then this ATM was about to go permanently out of service, and I would make sure they regretted every single withdrawal. My phone alarm blared at precisely 4 a.m., shattering the silence of the still sleeping house. The sound was shrill, painful to the ears, but I shut it off with a reflexive motion. I couldn't be late. If I was even 10 minutes late, the morning schedule, organized with the precision of a military operation, would fall apart. With eyes that still stung from lack of sleep, I had only managed to close them at 1 a.m. after ironing a mountain of Jake and Ricky's t-shirts. I dragged my body to the bathroom. The cold water on my face did little to wash away the exhaustion that had settled deep in my bones. It felt like I was carrying a 50-pound weight on my shoulders. But I had no choice. I was the engine that powered this house. If I stalled, life for Sharon and her sons would grind to a halt. While waiting for the water to boil for Sharon's coffee and her son's sugary tea, I started chopping onions. This hellish routine had been my life for 3 relentless months. At 4:30 a.m., I cooked. At 5:30 a.m., I washed the dishes from their previous night's dinner, which were always piled high. At 6 a.m., I woke Ben, laid out his work clothes, then took a lightning-fast shower. By 7 a.m., I was out the door, battling the NYC traffic, to earn a living for people who were, at that very moment, still snoring in their cold, air-conditioned rooms, the electricity for which I paid. That particular morning, my head was throbbing. My vision swam as I was stir-frying some vegetables. A cold sweat dripped down my back, even though the morning air was cool. I grabbed the edge of the sink, trying to fight back a sudden wave of nausea. My whole body felt hot. I knew this wasn't just a common cold. It felt like my mono was flaring up again. My doctor had warned me not to overdo it. "Anna, where's my coffee? Why haven't you brought it to my room yet?" Sharon's shout from her bedroom made my head pound even harder. I took a deep breath, arranged a mug on a tray with trembling hands, and carried it to her room. "Sorry, Sharon. My head is killing me." "I think I have a fever," I said softly, placing the coffee on her nightstand. Sharon glanced at me for a second, then sniffed dismissively. No hand reached out to check my forehead. No concerned questions were asked. "Have you taken some Tylenol?" It's probably from you staying up late playing on your phone." "Don't be a baby, Anna. Ricky wants scrambled eggs for breakfast. Make some for him before you leave. He says he has a job interview today," she added with a cynical tone. "Though I doubt he'll actually go," before taking a sip of her coffee. I wanted to cry. A job interview. That was Ricky's go-to excuse whenever he needed gas money or cigarette money from Ben. In reality, he was just going to his friend's apartment to play video games. But I didn't have the strength to argue. I went back to the kitchen to make the eggs, trying to hold back the tears that fell, sizzling, into the hot pan. I forced myself to go to work that day, but at the office, my body gave out. I fainted during our weekly team meeting. My coworkers panicked and rushed me to a nearby urgent care clinic. The doctor's verdict was clear. I needed at least 3 days of complete bed rest due to a severe viral infection and exhaustion. Ben picked me up, his face etched with worry. But his concerns seemed to be overshadowed by his fear of his mother's reaction when she found out I was sick and unable to serve them. When we got home, Sharon didn't greet us with a worried face, but with a sour one. Sick? How could you be sick? Who's going to cook dinner tonight? Who's going to clean up? You know I can't stand in the kitchen for too long. My legs hurt, she complained the moment she saw Ben helping me into our room. Anna needs to rest, Mom. The doctor said she can't do anything strenuous for a few days, Ben replied meekly. Oh, for crying out loud. Such a burden, living here for free, and now getting sick all the time, she muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. For 2 days, I was confined to bed. Ben was attentive when he was home, feeding me soup and making sure I took my medicine, but Ben had to work during the day. And that was when the real hell began. That afternoon, my throat was parched. The water pitcher in our room was empty. I tried calling for Sharon, but there was no answer. With faltering steps, I forced myself out of the room and towards the kitchen. My body was weak, my vision blurry. As I passed the living room, I stopped in my tracks. There they were, Jake and Ricky, sitting leisurely, smoking cigarettes. The smoke filled the room, making my chest tighten. They were laughing at something on TV. Sharon was sitting on her armchair, massaging her own feet. Man, this is the life, huh? Ricky remarked, flicking his cigarette ash onto the floor, not into the ashtray. Fast internet, food on demand, power's always on. Ben is such a sucker, letting us live like this. Jake roared with laughter. It's not Ben who's the sucker, it's his wife, that Anna. So eager to please, always doing whatever she's told like a little maid. And she's got a college degree, works in an office. But in this house, she's lower than a housekeeper. At least a housekeeper gets paid. She's the one paying us indirectly. Shh, not so loud. She might hear you, Sharon chided, but a sly, cruel smile played on her lips. Just let her be. That's what a daughter-in-law is for. She has to be devoted. It's her own fault for marrying Ben, my golden boy. You two just have to be smart about it. When Anna gets mad, you just have to manipulate Ben a little. Make sure your allowance doesn't get cut off. Don't worry, Mom. Ben is easy. A few of your tears and he melts like butter, Ricky scoffed. My heart felt like it stopped. The blood in my veins turned to ice, then boiled, a rage so hot it eclipsed the fever I was suffering from. All this time, I thought they were just lazy and inconsiderate. I was wrong. They weren't just parasites. They were leeches, fully aware that they were sucking the life out of me. They were laughing at my sacrifices. They saw my kindness as stupidity. I stood frozen behind the wall, a silent witness. The tears wouldn't come. The sadness had evaporated, replaced by a chilling, razor-sharp clarity. My respect for Sharon, my pity for my brothers-in-law, it all shattered into dust in that single moment. I didn't get my glass of water. I turned around and dragged my feet back to my room, fueled by the last dregs of my energy and a burning fire of anger. I locked the door, jamming a chair under the knob since the lock was broken. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my reflection in the closet mirror. My face was pale, my eyes sunken, my hair a mess. Enough, I whispered to the woman in the mirror. The stupid, obedient Anna died today. Starting tomorrow, you're all going to find out who really owns the wallet in this house. That Monday morning, I woke up a different person. My body was maybe at 80% recovery, but my spirit felt stronger than steel. No more waking up at 4 a.m. I woke up at 6:30 a.m., a reasonable time for a working professional. I took a calm shower, put on my sharpest work outfit, and applied a little more makeup than usual to hide the last traces of paleness from my face. When I walked out of the room, the house was already in an uproar. Anna, why are you just coming out now? Where's breakfast? Where's my coffee? Sharon yelled from the empty dining table. Jake and Ricky were sitting there with sullen faces, tapping their forks impatiently. I walked calmly past them, slipping on my flats. I didn't cook, Sharon. I'm still feeling weak. I'm not supposed to be on my feet for too long. Then what are we supposed to eat? Ricky demanded. You could buy something, or make it yourself. You have hands and feet, don't you? I replied flatly, without looking at them. A stunned silence fell over the dining room. They were shocked. The Anna, who usually apologized 1,000 times, was now responding with ice in her voice. Is that how you talk to your mother and your brothers? Sharon snapped, trying to pull her authority card. I have to go to work now, Sharon. I'm running late. I quickly touched her hand in a gesture of goodbye, a mere formality, and walked out the door. At the office, I worked as usual. But during my lunch break, I did something I rarely did in my quest to save money for the household. I went to my favorite Thai restaurant. I ordered pad Thai, green curry, and spring rolls. I ate every bite with relish, savoring my food without a single thought as to whether the people at home had eaten. After lunch, I stopped at a convenience store and bought a sandwich and a carton of milk for myself to eat later that evening before I got home. My strategy was simple. I would only feed myself. I got home at 8 p.m. that evening, having deliberately lingered at a coffee shop near my office and eaten the sandwich I'd bought. When I opened the front door, a gloomy atmosphere greeted me. Finally! What did you bring? We're starving. All we've had all day are the last 2 packets of ramen, Jake exclaimed. I walked in empty-handed, my work bag containing only my laptop. I didn't bring anything, Jake. What? So what about dinner? And you didn't do the monthly grocery shopping either? The fridge is empty. There's nothing in there but water and ice cubes, Ricky protested, pointing to the open refrigerator. Sharon came out of her room, her face a mask of displeasure. Anna, what is wrong with you? I've been waiting all day for you to come home with food. Are you trying to starve me to death on purpose? I took a deep breath and put on the saddest face I could muster, one I had practiced in the office bathroom mirror earlier. A pathetic look full of fake concern. I'm so sorry, Sharon. Jake, Ricky, I have terrible news from my company, I said, my voice trembling. The company is in a major crisis. They cut my salary by 70% this month. All bonuses have been canceled. There might even be mass layoffs next month. The 3 of them just stared, their mouths agape. Their eyes widened in horror. What, 70%? So how much are you making now? Sharon asked hysterically. Just enough to cover my subway fare and Ben's car payment. It's really, really tight. I don't know how we're going to pay for utilities or buy groceries. I couldn't even afford to buy lunch today. I just drank water from the cooler at work, I lied smoothly. In reality, my salary was untouched. My bonus had even been deposited today. I had already transferred all of it to a separate online savings account that Ben didn't know about. You're lying. How could they cut it by that much? Jake accused, suspicious. I swear, Jake. You can call HR if you don't believe me. The economy is tough right now. That's why, from now on, I can't do the big monthly grocery runs anymore. We have to be extremely frugal. I can't give out cigarette money, I can't pay for the internet, and I can't buy steak every week. Silence. This time, a dreadful, suffocating silence. Ricky's face was pale, as he imagined a life without cigarettes and a fast internet connection. Sharon looked like someone who had just been handed a terminal diagnosis. Their primary source of funding had just run dry, or so they believed. Then what am I supposed to eat? Sharon whimpered. Whatever we can afford, I guess. Maybe Jake and Ricky could start looking for some odd jobs, just to help buy some rice and bread. Ben's salary is stretched pretty thin, too, I suggested innocently. No way. A college graduate doing odd jobs? Forget it, Jake scoffed, his pride wounded. Well, then I guess we'll all be fasting together, I said with a faint smile, then walked into my room. Inside, I immediately locked the door. Ben was working late. I opened my banking app on my phone and looked at the healthy balance in my secret account. A profound sense of satisfaction washed over me. Their hunger was no longer my problem. For months, I had been feeding the lions that wanted to devour me. Now, it was time for the lions to learn how to hunt for themselves or starve. That night, I slept more soundly than I had in months. lulled to sleep by the sound of rumbling stomachs from the next room and the quiet bickering between Sharon and her golden boys about who was going to ask the corner store for credit to buy a carton of eggs. Their suffering was just beginning, and I had just started my silent victory party. The atmosphere in the house lately felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. The tension was a thick, suffocating presence in the air. Ever since I announced my fictitious bankruptcy, the faces in this house had become masks of a despair that was both pathetic and deeply satisfying to watch. The kitchen, which usually smelled of sizzling bacon in the morning, was now eerily silent. The fridge, once packed with snacks and cold drinks, was now a barren wasteland containing only a pitcher of water and a half-empty bottle of ketchup. However, the ultimate disaster for the parasites in this house wasn't hunger. They could still fill their bellies with cheap ramen or potato chips. It was the loss of their lifeblood, the internet connection. On Saturday afternoon, while I was reading a book in my locked room, a hysterical scream erupted from the living room. It was so loud it made me jump. It was Jake. What? Why did it disconnect? I'm in the middle of a raid. Ricky, check the damn router now. I heard the frantic pounding of feet. A moment later, Ricky's voice shrieked, "The light is red, man. It's totally dead." A loud banging rattled my bedroom door. Anna, open up. I calmly put my book down, took a deep breath, and slowly opened the door. Before me stood two grown men with panicked faces, as if the house were on fire. Sweat beaded on their foreheads, not from heat, but from the stress of their online game being interrupted. "What's wrong, guys? Is there a burglar?" I asked with the most innocent face I could manage. "The internet is out. Didn't you pay the bill? What day is it?" "It's always been fine before," Jake demanded, his hand still clutching his phone, trembling. I looked at him with a sympathetic expression. "Oh, the Wi-Fi. Right. I told you guys, my salary was cut drastically. I can't afford that premium fiber optic plan anymore. It's almost $100 a month. So, I just let them disconnect it." Jake's jaw dropped, his eyes looking like they were about to pop out of his head. "Disconnected? So what are we supposed to use to play games? Our phone data? That's expensive, Anna. Are you crazy? How could you not pay for a basic necessity like this?" "A basic necessity is food, Jake, not high-speed internet for gaming," I replied sharply, but my tone remained calm. "Besides, you and Ricky aren't working. What do you need super-fast internet for? If you want to get online, maybe you can go to the coffee shop down the street, but you'll have to buy a coffee." Ricky stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? You're trying to torture us slowly. First the food, now the internet. Do you want us to die of boredom in this house?" "I'm not torturing anyone, Ricky. I just don't have the money. If you want the internet back on, you're welcome to pay for it yourselves." "You could split it. You're two grown men. You can't come up with $100? I challenged. They fell silent, completely cornered. Of course, they couldn't. They still asked Ben for cigarette money. Stomping their feet in frustration, they retreated to the living room, throwing their controllers onto the couch. I closed my door again, hiding the triumphant smile spreading across my face. But that was just the beginning. The real terror arrived 3 days later. That night, Ben was working late again. I was in my room, enjoying a grilled cheese sandwich I'd made on a small panini press I kept hidden. Suddenly, a sound that is both familiar and terrifying to anyone with a prepaid electricity meter echoed through the house. Beep, beep, beep. The sound was shrill and repetitive, like a ticking time bomb. In this house, because of the non-stop air conditioning in Sharon's and the brothers' rooms, the electricity credit was devoured at an alarming rate. Usually, the moment I heard that first beep, I would immediately top it up via my banking app. But this time, I let it sing. "Anna, the meter is beeping. It's so annoying," Sharon yelled from her room. I stayed silent, pretending to be asleep. 5 minutes later, the beeping stopped. Not because it had been refilled, but because the entire house was plunged into pitch-black darkness. The power was completely out. The fans stopped, the TV died, and most importantly, the AC units went silent. A moment of silence was followed by mass panic. "Anna, the lights are out! It's dark!" Sharon shrieked. I emerged from my room with a small flashlight I had prepared. The beam illuminated the panicked faces in the living room. The hot, humid New York air began to creep in, making the room feel stuffy within minutes. "Why is it dark? Didn't you top up the meter?" Sharon asked, her handheld fan already flapping furiously. "No money, Sharon," I answered simply. "My bank account is empty. Ben doesn't get paid for another week." "Oh my lord, it's so hot. I can't sleep without the AC. Are you trying to kill me slowly?" Sharon began her melodrama, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and heat-induced misery. "So what should I do, Sharon? Go into debt? No one will lend me money. If Jake or Ricky has any savings, please use it to buy some credit. Even $20 would be enough to get the lights on for tonight." "Where would we get money?" Ricky snapped from the darkness. "You're the one with the job. This is your responsibility." "My only responsibility is to my husband, not to two healthy, unemployed men," I retorted coldly. Sharon stood up, pointing a finger at my face, barely visible in the flashlight's beam. "You are a wicked, ungrateful daughter-in-law, a bringer of bad luck. Ever since you set foot in this house, my son's fortunes have dried up. You're just a parasite who thinks she's in charge. Ben should have married a richer woman, a more obedient woman, not some cheap career woman type like you." The words flowed out, sharp and venomous. But I didn't cry. Silently, my hand slipped into the pocket of my house dress. I pressed the stop button on the voice recorder app on my phone. Got it, I thought. Concrete proof of my mother-in-law's true feelings for me. "Well, sorry, Sharon. This bringer of bad luck is going to bed now. I have a battery-powered fan in my room, so it's actually quite pleasant. Good night." I turned and left them sputtering and blaming each other in the oppressive darkness. Inside my room, I turned on a bright, rechargeable LED lamp and my small, cool fan. I put in my earbuds, played my favorite playlist, and let the world outside my door collapse under the weight of a darkness they had created for themselves. That night, I slept with an overwhelming sense of victory, even as, outside my door, the mosquitoes began to feast on the tender, coddled skin of my in-laws. The next day, Ben came home looking haggard. He had just worked 2 back-to-back double shifts to earn some extra money after I told him about my pay cut. When he walked in, he was greeted by a scene of utter chaos. The house was a mess. Dirty dishes were piled up because the water pump, which required electricity, had been off. His family was sitting limply on the living room floor like refugees after a natural disaster. The power was back on. Either Ben had bought some credit on his way home, or Jake had finally sold one of his precious action figures. I didn't care. I was sitting at the dining table, writing something in a small, black-covered notebook. "Anna," Ben said, his voice heavy and tired. He sat down across from me, his expression a complicated mix of anger, disappointment, and desperation. "Hey, have you eaten?" I asked calmly, closing my notebook. "Mom just told me everything." She was crying. "She said you let the power go out all night. She said you have money but you're being cheap. She said you insulted her and my brothers." Ben fired off the accusations, his eyes demanding an explanation. I looked into my husband's eyes. The eyes I had once loved for their gentleness now looked clouded by burdens that weren't his to carry. "And you believe her?" I asked in return. "It's not about believing her or not, Anna. How could you be so cruel as to let my mother swelter in the heat, getting eaten by mosquitoes? You know how fragile her health is. And you lied about the internet, didn't you? I saw a notification on your phone when you left it on the table. A text from your bank. Your full salary was deposited, Anna. And a bonus." Ben threw a small ATM receipt onto the table, one he must have found or printed out himself. My secret was out. I was caught. My heart pounded. But strangely, I didn't feel scared. I felt relieved. It was time. No more pretending. "Yes, Ben," I lied. I admitted, my voice clear and strong. Ben was stunned. He probably expected me to deny it. "Why? Why would you lie about your salary? Why would you watch my family suffer like this?" I took the black notebook I had been writing in and pushed it across the table to him. "Open it, Ben." He opened the book hesitantly. Page after page was filled with neat columns of numbers and notes. "That's a record of our expenses for the 1 year we've been married, Ben," I explained, pointing to the lines of figures. "Look at page 5. That's the grocery bill. $400 a month. Do you know where it goes? To Jake's cigarettes, to Ricky's data plan, to your mother's skincare, which costs more than my own. Look at page 10. That's over $2,000 in utility bills for the year, Ben. That's money that should have been our down payment. Ben's hand trembled as he held the book, his eyes scanning the fantastic sums he had always ignored because he just assumed we were getting by. I lied about my salary because I needed to see, Ben. I needed to see what would happen if the money stopped. Would they step up? Would they care about us? And the answer is no. When I was sick, they laughed at me. When I said I had no money, they got angry. They don't love us, Ben. They love our money. But this isn't the way to do it, Anna. You've humiliated me as a husband. You've made me look like I can't provide for my wife and my own family. I slapped the table lightly. That's exactly why I did it. Because I want you to be a real husband, Ben. A husband who protects his wife, not one who offers her up to be bled dry by leeches. I pulled a folded brochure from my pocket. It was for a small, clean, one-bedroom apartment. The location was close to my office. I've already paid the security deposit and the first month's rent for this place, Ben. I used the bonus money you said I was hiding. I was saving it for us, not spending it. Ben stared at the brochure, then back at me, his face ashen. I'm moving next week, Ben. On Saturday. The moving truck is already booked, I said firmly, delivering the ultimatum I had carefully prepared. Anna, don't be ridiculous. What about Mom? That's your choice, Ben. I cut him off. You have two options now. Option 1, you come with me to that apartment. We start a new life, just the two of us. We build our future, have a real savings account, have children in a healthy environment. We can send your mom some money once a month. A reasonable amount, not whatever they demand. I took a breath, fighting the tremor in my voice. Option 2, you stay here. Be the perfect, devoted son to your mother. Be the ATM for your brothers until you're old, but if you choose this, I'll see you in court. I'm filing for divorce. The room fell silent. The ticking of the wall clock sounded deafeningly loud. Ben looked at me with tears welling in his eyes. He never imagined the quiet, agreeable wife he married could deliver such a devastating threat. Anna, you wouldn't... Divorce? His voice cracked. I don't want a divorce, Ben. I love you, but I love myself more. I refuse to die young from the stress of taking care of people who don't even bother to ask if I've eaten. The ball is in your court now. Decide on your priority, your wife or your parasites. I stood up, leaving Ben slumped at the dining table, his head in his hands, with only the black notebook as a silent witness to our foolishness. From the other room, I could faintly hear Sharon complaining about missing her favorite soap opera because of the power outage. That voice, which once filled me with fear, now sounded like nothing more than background noise that I would soon be leaving behind forever. My decision was made. Even if the sky fell, next week, I was walking out of this hell. That Saturday morning, the sky over Queens was overcast, as if reflecting the tension that had coagulated inside my in-laws' house. But to me, the clouds felt cool and refreshing, a sign that the scorching hell I had been living in was about to end. I woke up earlier than usual, not to cook or wash dishes from my brothers-in-law's late-night feast, but to pack the last remnants of my dignity into cardboard boxes. The clock struck 9 a.m. Perfect timing. Sharon, Jake, and Ricky were still fast asleep, probably dreaming of the effortless, comfortable life they had been enjoying. They had no idea that just outside, a small yellow moving truck was parked, waiting for my signal to demolish their comfort zone. Ready, ma'am? The mover asked in a low voice. Ready. Please be as quick and quiet as possible. Let's get the big stuff first, I instructed. Ben stood beside me, holding a large suitcase filled with his clothes. His face was tense, and a cold sweat slicked his temples. He looked like a man about to jump off a cliff, hesitant, but knowing there was no turning back. Since our confrontation, Ben hadn't said much, but he had started quietly packing his things. It was the wordless answer I had been hoping for. Are you sure this isn't going to give Mom a real heart attack? Ben whispered, his eyes fixed on his mother's front door. I gave him a sharp look. If your mom has a heart attack because she's losing a refrigerator and a TV, it means she loves things more than she loves her own son. Let's go, Ben. Operation Extraction began. 3 movers entered the house with practiced efficiency. First target, the living room. The 50-inch LED TV, the altar where Jake and Ricky worshiped during their gaming sessions, was unplugged. In an instant, the wall that was usually aglow was now a blank, empty space, leaving behind a sad, rectangular outline of dust. The plush, reclining sofa where Sharon used to sit like a queen, issuing her commands, was hoisted up. The shag rug, the coffee table, even the wall art, all of which I had bought with my annual bonus, disappeared one by one into the belly of the truck. Next, the kitchen. The double-door refrigerator they constantly opened and closed was wheeled out. The microwave, the blender, the air fryer, and my set of expensive pots and pans were all loaded up. The kitchen, once filled with modern appliances, was now reset to factory settings. All that was left was Sharon's old, rusty gas stove in the corner. The noise of the movers maneuvering the heavy fridge finally broke the morning silence. Crash. The leg of the fridge hit the door frame. What was that noise? Sharon's shrill voice echoed from the master bedroom. A second later, her door flew open. Sharon appeared in her bathrobe, her hair a mess. Her eyes swept across the living room, now as empty as a soccer field. "Burglars! There's a burglar! Jake! Ricky! Wake up! We're being robbed!" She shrieked hysterically. Jake and Ricky stumbled out of their rooms in their boxer shorts, their eyes still bleary with sleep, their faces panicked. But their panic turned to confusion when they saw me standing calmly in the middle of the room, holding a clipboard with a checklist, while Ben stood with his head down next to his suitcase. "What the? It's empty. Where's the TV? Where's the couch?" Ricky asked, his brain clearly unable to process the new reality. "It wasn't a burglar, Sharon. It was just the owner of the property taking back what's hers," I answered coldly. Sharon stared at me, her eyes bulging, then turned to Ben. "Ben, what is the meaning of this? Has your wife gone insane? Why is everything being moved out? Are you selling the house?" Ben slowly lifted his head. "We're not selling the house, Mom. We're moving out. Today." "Moving out?" the 3 of them screamed in unison. "Yes. I bought all of these things, so I have the right to take them with me." Jake stepped forward, his face red with rage. He pointed a finger at Ben. "Are you crazy, Ben? You're just going to leave Mom and us here, in an empty house like this? Do you want Mom to freeze to death without a fridge? To die of boredom without a TV? Get a job, Jake," Ben suddenly yelled, stunning all of us into silence. Ben's voice, usually so gentle, was now explosive. "You're grown men. You're healthy. You have hands. You have brains. Get a job. Stop mooching off me and my wife. I'm tired, Jake. I'm so tired of being your cash cow." Seeing the situation turning against her, Sharon deployed her ultimate weapon. She clutched her chest, her eyes rolled back into her head, and her body began to sway. "Oh, my heart. Ben, it hurts. I'm dying, Ben." She groaned, and then thump. Sharon collapsed onto the cold tile floor, where the rug used to be. "Mom!" Jake and Ricky rushed to her, shaking her body. "See what you did, Ben? Mom's having a heart attack. If she dies, you're a murderer." I grabbed Ben's arm firmly. "Wait," I whispered. I walked over to where Sharon lay on the floor. I didn't kneel. I stood over her, looking down. I could see her eyelids fluttering slightly. Her breathing was even, not like someone having a coronary. "Hey, driver," I called out loudly to one of the movers who was watching the drama from the doorway. "Could you please call a private ambulance? The most expensive one you can find? Tell them it's a critical patient. But make sure the bill goes to Jake, because I don't have any cash on me." Upon hearing the words Bill and Jake, a medical miracle occurred. Sharon let out a few small coughs, and then slowly opened her eyes. What happened?" "I feel dizzy," she mumbled, then sat up with an agility that betrayed no signs of a recent health crisis. I smiled cynically. "Wow, thank goodness. It was just a dizzy spell, I guess. It's amazing how quickly you recovered when you heard you'd have to pay for the ambulance yourself." Ben, who witnessed the entire charade, let out a long, heavy sigh. The disappointment was written all over his face. He finally realized his mother had just faked a medical emergency to manipulate him. The guilt in his heart slowly evaporated, replaced by a steely resolve. "Let's go, Anna," Ben said firmly. He grabbed his rolling suitcase and strode past his mother, who was still sitting on the floor. "Ben, you ungrateful son. If you walk out that door, don't you ever consider me your mother again. I curse you. Your life will be filled with misery." Sharon's curses echoed, filled with venom and hate. Ben paused at the doorway, without turning back. "I just want to be a fair husband, Mom. If you want to call me ungrateful because I refuse to be enslaved by my brothers, then so be it. Goodbye." Jake tried to block his path, grabbing the collar of Ben's shirt. "You can't leave. Who's going to pay for my internet? Who's going to give me cigarette money?" With a sharp movement, Ben shoved his brother's hand away. "I'm not your father, Jake. Grow up and take care of yourself." We got into a cab that was waiting behind the truck. As the car pulled away, I looked back through the rear window. Jake and Ricky were standing on the porch, looking lost and confused, like chicks who had lost their mother hen. Sharon was still sitting on the floor of the empty living room, crying. This time, they were probably real tears. The tears of someone who had just realized her gold mine had closed down for good. In the cab, Ben squeezed my hand tightly. His was cold and trembling, but his grip was strong. "I'm so sorry, Anna. I'm sorry it took me this long to see," he whispered, his voice hoarse. I leaned my head on his shoulder, feeling a weight of 1,000 pounds lift from my chest. "It's okay, Ben. The important thing is, we're free. We're finally going home, to our real home." 1 month had passed. The morning sun streamed through the clean glass windows, illuminating the small dining area of our apartment. There was no sound of video game explosions, no one yelling for coffee, and no choking smell of cigarette smoke. There was only the sound of birds chirping from the maple tree outside, and the delicious aroma of the bacon and eggs I had just cooked. The atmosphere in our rental was so peaceful, it felt almost magical. The walls were clean and white, decorated with our wedding photos I wasn't allowed to display at my in-laws because Sharon claimed they clashed with the decor. Here, I was the queen and Ben was the king. There was no queen mother and there were no unemployed princes. "Ben, breakfast is ready," I called. Ben walked out of the bathroom, his face fresh and bright. He had gained 5 pounds this past month. His cheeks were fuller, and the dark circles under his eyes were gone. He looked 10 years younger. It turned out that detoxing from a toxic family was the best skincare routine of all. "Wow. Scrambled eggs and bacon? You cooked again?" Ben asked enthusiastically, inhaling the aroma. "Of course. Cooking in your own kitchen just feels different, you know? When you're happy, the food tastes better. And there's no one here to complain that it's not salty enough or that there isn't enough of it," I replied, pouring him a cup of coffee. We ate in peace, making small talk about our plans for the weekend. Simple things that had once felt like an impossible luxury were now our daily reality. Ben had also become more motivated at work. Without the burden of supporting 3 other adults, his salary was more than enough for us to live comfortably. We were even able to start saving again for our dream home. In the midst of this peace, Ben's phone rang. "Mom," flashed on the screen. It was the 5th call this morning. Since we'd moved, they had been calling relentlessly. At first, they cursed at us, then they threatened us, and lately, they had resorted to begging. Ben looked at the screen hesitantly, then at me. "Go ahead and answer it." "Put it on speaker," I said casually, munching on a piece of toast. I was immune now. I was curious to see what drama was currently airing at the House of Horrors. Ben swiped the green button and hit the speakerphone icon. "Hello, Mom." A sob immediately erupted from the other end. His mother's voice was weak, hoarse, and pathetic. "Ben, please help me, son. I'm really sick this time. I have no medicine. Jake and Ricky are fighting every single day, breaking things. My head is going to explode." "What is it now, Mom?" Ben asked flatly. "The power company shut off the electricity yesterday. It's so hot. The water's not running. Yesterday, Ricky sold my stove to pay for his online gambling debts. Now we can't even cook. Jake ran off to his friend's house, leaving me here all alone, starving." "How can you be so cruel, Ben? Please send some money. Just $200 to turn the power back on, and buy some groceries. I'm begging you." Hearing her, I felt a slight twinge in my heart, a pang of human compassion. But then I remembered how they had laughed at me when I was sick. I remembered how Sharon had ordered me to cook for them while I was burning up with a fever. That flicker of pity died instantly, replaced by cold, hard logic. Giving them money now would be like feeding a cancer we had just managed to surgically remove. Ben looked at me, seeking my approval. I shook my head firmly. I took the phone from his hand. "Hello, Sharon. It's Anna," I said cheerfully. The crying on the other end stopped abruptly, replaced by a sharp, bitter tone. It's all your fault my sons are miserable. Are you happy now? Tell your husband to transfer the money. Stop being a devil and turning my son against me." "Oh, I'm so sorry, Sharon, but Ben can't send any money. Not because I'm influencing him, but because that money has already been allocated," I replied calmly. "Allocated to what? You two are living comfortably by yourselves. Don't be so selfish," she snapped. I smiled widely, placing a hand on my still flat stomach, where a new life was beginning. That morning, 2 pink lines had appeared on the test. "The most beautiful gift for our newfound freedom. The money is for our baby fund, Sharon. And for the hospital bills for the birth of your first grandchild," I said softly, but with deliberate emphasis. Silence. "Whoa, what? Grandchild? You're pregnant?" Her voice was a choked whisper. "Yes, Sharon. Thank God. It seems once the stress was gone, he decided to bless us. So, I'm very sorry, but Ben's priority right now is his wife and his future child. We need a lot of money for milk, diapers, and baby supplies. So we can't afford to finance Jake's cigarettes or Ricky's gambling debts. But, oh, and one more thing, Sharon. For the mental health of my unborn child, my doctor has advised me to avoid all sources of stress. So, with all due respect, I'll be blocking this number for a while, at least until you and your sons can stand on your own 2 feet. I hope you stay healthy. We'll send you a picture when the baby is born. Goodbye." Click. I ended the call. Then, with a few quick taps, I blocked Sharon's, Jake's, and Ricky's numbers from Ben's phone and my own. Ben stared at me, his eyes glistening with tears, his mouth hanging open in disbelief. "Anna, are you serious?" I nodded, smiling as I handed him the pregnancy test I had hidden in my pocket. Ben took the small plastic stick, saw the 2 clear pink lines, and then let out a whoop of pure joy. He scooped me up into his arms, spinning me around in our small dining room. Our laughter erupted, filling the apartment with pure, unadulterated happiness. Out there, somewhere in Queens, karma was likely doing its brutal work. No electricity, empty stomachs, and endless fighting were probably destroying the last remnants of that family's arrogance. But here, in our small, peaceful apartment, we were celebrating our victory. I was no longer a downtrodden Cinderella. I was no longer a cash cow. I was Anna, a free woman who had successfully saved her husband, her marriage, and the future of her child from the grip of parasites. And believe me, that freedom tasted sweeter than any 5-star meal.